Welcome back, everybody. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today for the 12th explainer in our comprehensive series on communication. This one is incredibly important, and it's titled Listening Skills. I want you to think about your day so far, or maybe just a recent meeting you sat through. Have you ever poured your absolute heart out to a friend, or given really complex, detailed instructions to a team member, only to realize the person nodding in front of you is a million miles away? Or, hey, let's be honest, maybe you've been on the other side of that. Staring blankly at a coworker while mentally composing your grocery list for the evening. It happens to all of us. But here's the thing. Breakdowns in communication happen so frequently simply because someone wasn't actually paying attention. Poor listening affects our daily lives in profound, highly tangible ways. It damages our closest personal relationships, it derails expensive, time-consuming professional projects, and it actively stunts our own personal growth. But it absolutely does not have to be that way. Today, we're going to fundamentally transform how you connect with the world around you. Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start by tackling the myth of automatic listening, then break down the 6 stages of listening, explore the immense power of active listening, look at why this matters everywhere from your living room to the boardroom, uncover some common mistakes and hidden barriers, and finally, wrap up with your ultimate strategies for listening mastery. All right, let's jump right in. Section 1. The myth of automatic listening, beyond the ear. We so often just assume that listening happens naturally, right? Sound hits our eardrums and voila, we're listening. But we really need to bust that myth right now. You see, scholars like Rogers and Kincaid define communication as creating mutual understanding. Now, think about what that actually means. It means true listening isn't just about catching the literal words being thrown at you like you're playing catch. It requires deep mental concentration and real emotional openness. Think about a time a friend told you they were doing fine, but their voice was shaking and they wouldn't make eye contact. If you were only processing their vocabulary, the word fine, you completely missed the entire message. Real listening requires an incredible amount of active work. It's not just about the spoken word, it's about interpreting the tone, noticing the microfacial expressions, reading the physical gestures, and understanding the overarching context of the conversation. It is a full-body, fully engaged cognitive process that goes so much further than simply receiving auditory signals. The core difference that trips so many of us up here is biological versus behavioral. Hearing is just biology. It's a physical, entirely automatic reflex. You can hear the low hum of a refrigerator in the background, or even hear a brilliant, complex lecture while entirely daydreaming about what you're having for lunch. But, as communication scholars Wolven and Coakley heavily argue, listening is a highly active, learned behavior. You are not automatically a good listener simply because you possess working ears. True listening demands your focused attention and your active, conscious interpretation. It is a discrete skill, and just like any other skill, it is something you have to deliberately choose to practice every single day. So, how does this actually work in practice? Let's move to Section 2, the 6 stages of listening, the mechanics of understanding. Communication scholar Joseph DeVito outlines these exact 6 stages. And what's fascinating is that this framework shows just how incredibly fragile communication actually is. First, you receive the verbal and nonverbal signals. Second, you attend to them, meaning you deliberately and actively focus your conscious mind. Third, you understand and interpret the meaning behind those signals. Fourth, you remember the important information. Fifth, you evaluate the speaker's logic and their underlying intentions. And finally, step 6, you actually respond. If any single link in this 6-step chain fails, the entire process breaks down. Imagine a disaster scenario where you do those first 3 steps absolutely perfectly, but you fail at step 4, remembering. Say your friend pours their heart out to you, asking you to please check in on them the next day because they are struggling. You deeply understand their pain in the moment, but the next day, you just forget to follow up. Because that remembering step failed, the communication ultimately failed, and a huge amount of trust is broken. It is an incredibly delicate chain reaction. So the crucial point we are building toward is that listening is not passive silence. It's intensely dynamic. And that brings us to Section 3, the power of active listening, participating emotionally. The legendary psychologist Carl Rogers laid a profound foundation for this, heavily influenced by his work in client-centered therapy. He emphasizes that active listening requires us to deeply respect the speaker's experience. He literally calls for empathy, genuineness, and unconditional positive regard. This is absolutely vital in sensitive or highly emotional situations. Think about it. When someone is genuinely upset, confused, or feeling incredibly vulnerable, they don't want your quick fixes, and they definitely don't want your immediate logical judgments. They need to feel heard. They need to feel validated as a human being. And achieving that high level of connection requires your deep emotional participation. To actually be an active listener in the real world, you have to deliberately practice and utilize these specific features. It always starts with full attention. That means no multitasking, absolutely no glancing at your smartwatch to check a notification, and definitely no typing emails while you're on a call. Empathy comes next, meaning you truly try to respect their perspective, even if you fundamentally disagree with it. Then comes paraphrasing, which honestly is an absolute superpower. Saying something simple like, "Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you're frustrated with the shifting timeline on this project." That confirms your understanding, and it completely diffuses tense situations almost instantly. Next, you ask open-ended questions to clarify and dig a little deeper into their thought process. And finally, you provide feedback. As communication expert Owen Harji notes, giving constructive, engaged feedback shows true responsiveness to the other person's actual needs. Now, researchers Worthington and Fitchhauser explain that effective listeners are highly adaptable. They adjust their listening style based entirely on the purpose of the interaction. You simply shouldn't listen the same way in every single situation. Are you using informational listening to aggressively grasp and retain facts during a really complex software training seminar? Are you using critical listening to evaluate the logic and, say, spot the flaws in a politician's debate arguments? Or maybe you need empathic listening to really understand and support a family member who is in deep distress. Or perhaps you're just kicking back and enjoying a great piece of music or a compelling story through appreciative listening. Knowing exactly which cognitive tool to pull from your toolbox at any given moment is a core hallmark of a true master communicator. Okay, let's look at why mastering this adaptability matters in literally every single facet of your life. Section 4. Why listening matters everywhere, from classrooms to boardrooms. The stakes here are incredibly high. Consider the educational impact. Imagine a student missing crucial verbal instructions right before a final exam, leading to a failing grade and immense stress. In the professional realm, poor listening can be downright catastrophic. Just imagine a doctor misinterpreting a patient's vaguely described symptoms. That could literally cost a life. Or think about a corporate manager who arrogantly assumes an employee's genuine concern about team burnout is just standard complaining. That single failure to listen can lead to massive staff turnover. Communication failures almost always stem from poor listening. Scholars Nichols and Stevens remind us that listening is the absolute central pillar to learning and professional success. It's the invisible force that builds dynamic teamwork, diffuses nasty office conflicts, and provides the essential emotional support that strengthens trust in our most intimate personal relationships. This brings us to a much deeper psychology at play. What Joseph DeVito means here is that listening carefully doesn't just help you process the content or the raw literal information. It actively and continuously nurtures the relationship dimension. When you give someone your undivided, unwavering attention, you are inherently sending a powerful, nonverbal message to the speaker that they matter. You are quite literally building their dignity, and that is huge. Now, I want you to hold up a mirror to your own daily habits as we explore the pitfalls we all fall into. Let's move to Section 5, Common Mistakes and Hidden Barriers. Be honest with yourself here. Do you find yourself guilty of these specific habits experts Adler, Rosenfeld, and Proctor identify? Do you habitually interrupt, instantly making the speaker feel rushed and totally disrespected? Do you engage in selective listening, only hearing exactly what you want to hear? Kind of like a defensive employee only hearing the one piece of criticism during an otherwise glowing performance review? What about silently planning your brilliantly witty reply while the other person is still talking? We all do it. Or my personal favorite, false agreement. We can all relate to the extreme awkwardness of nodding along just to avoid social discomfort, only to realize 20 minutes later you accidentally agreed to host a massive dinner party because you weren't actually listening. These common habits absolutely destroy effective communication. Scholars Shannon and Weaver bring us to a fascinating concept here: noise. Now, when we hear the word noise, we immediately think of a blaring ambulance siren or really loud traffic outside our window. But in communication theory, noise is literally anything that interferes with the message. This brilliantly explains why intense emotional states act as severe psychological noise. If you are angry, defensive, or incredibly anxious while someone is talking, that emotion literally acts as a loud, static interference in your brain. Anger makes us physically incapable of processing complex logic, effectively clouding your judgment and ruining mutual understanding before the other person even finishes their sentence. Beyond those bad personal habits and internal psychological noise, scholar David Berlow explains that external barriers can severely weaken your ability to interpret messages. You have physical barriers, like physical distance or a loudly humming AC unit in the conference room. Psychological barriers, like we just discussed, involving stress or deep-seated prejudice. Semantic barriers are incredibly common in the corporate world. This happens when someone uses dense industry jargon or complex acronyms that you just don't understand, causing you to instantly tune out. Cultural barriers occur where differing eye contact norms or communication styles clash. And of course, technological barriers. We have all been there, staring at a frozen screen with poor internet connections and brutal audio delays during online meetings, causing absolute chaos. Recognizing these barriers is the essential first step to intentionally overcoming them. All right, let's transition from diagnosing the problem to providing your concrete toolkit for absolute listening mastery. Section 6, Strategies for Listening Mastery, your action plan. To achieve this elite level of connection, you need an ultimate checklist. Apply these 7 strategies systematically and build them into a daily habit. Start with the physical environment. Put the phone away, close those extra browser tabs, and give your full, undivided attention. Bite your tongue, embrace the awkward silence, and strictly avoid interrupting. When they finally finish, ask clarifying questions to dig deeper into their point. Systematically paraphrase what you just heard to lock in that mutual understanding. Critically, push yourself to listen for feelings rather than just the raw facts. The emotional subtext, the hesitation in their voice, is so often the real, hidden message. Consciously control your own emotional reactions so you don't generate that psychological noise, and always provide appropriate engaged feedback. Committing to this toolkit will completely transform how you connect with everyone around you. So, the crucial point we arrive at today is this. Active listening isn't just a basic, fluffy, soft skill to throw at the bottom of a resume. As scholar Judy Brownell beautifully notes, it is an act of deep respect and rigorous mental discipline. It is a deliberate choice you make day in and day out to build trust, foster meaningful cooperation, and forge authentic human connection in a modern world that is so incredibly filled with talking, but desperately starved for listening. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to consider before your very next conversation. The next time someone speaks to you, will you just be hearing their physical words, or will you actually be deeply, intentionally listening? I really hope you choose the latter. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you found this breakdown valuable and want to continue mastering the art of communication, please hit that like button, comment your thoughts down below, share this with a friend or a colleague who needs to hear it, and make absolutely sure to subscribe to this channel for more deep dive explainers. Keep learning, keep listening, and I will see you in the next one.